Good afternoon. Welcome to this learning video. So in Microsoft Excel, have you ever had an opportunity where you are looking at a list of data? As you can see, I have here from columns C, D, and E, from rows 8 through 19, and you wanted to, let's say, add up the number of times a certain value has occurred in that list. Or maybe you want to find an average of the total number of sales, or maybe you want to add up the total number of sales. So there are three functions that I'm going to introduce to you that will allow us to do that. The three functions are very similar. So let's start with the first one. What I want to do here, you can see on the label, I want to find out the number of times, I want to count the number of times that sales in this column E is greater than 100. In order to do that, I'll use what we call the countif function. So it's kind of like combining two things in one function. Doing a count or a tally, and then having a condition based on it. So I have to tell Excel what range I want to include. And in this case, I'm going to click and drag from E8 down to E19. That's the first argument. I separate it with a comma. The second argument is the criteria. Now, I want it to be greater than 100, but it won't work when I just do greater than sign 100. Watch what happens when I do that. There's an error. What I have to do is tell Excel to treat this test as a text value, which means I have to enclose this criteria inside double quote marks, which is what I'm doing right now, as you can see. Now it will work. The answer is going to be 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If the answer is not 6, I will mail you a check for $10. Phew. Okay, so it worked. Let's do another countif function. In this next example, it says count up the number of sales by Jim, and Jim's name appears here in column C. So again, equals countif, left parenthesis, tell Excel what the range is to test, in this case from C8 to C19, use a comma to separate to the next argument, and the criteria in double quote marks is equal character Jim. Now it is not case sensitive. Just to prove it, all the Jims and all the names are in uppercase. I'm going to type Jim's name in lowercase. It still will work. The answer is going to be 3. 1, 2, 3. If the answer is not 3, I will give you $20. Whew. Okay. Last but not least, I will use another countif function, equal countif, left parenthesis. I want to find out the number of times that California appears in the column of state. So again, I need to use the range, in this case D8 through D19, comma, double quote mark, equals CA. Upper or lowercase doesn't matter. Close the right parenthesis, and the answer is going to be 1, 2. If the answer is not 2, you guessed it, I'll mail you a check for $20. Phew. There we go. That's using the countif function. Now, if I change one of these values here, let's say right here, sales for Jane in Georgia is equal to 200, I'm going to change it to 99. And watch how this is going to change from 6 to 5. Here we go. And there we go. It worked. So it tests the range criteria that I set up for whatever I put in the criteria in the countif function. Now, similarly, let's go over to here in column K, it's looking for average. So instead of adding them up, I want to find an average. So I will use the averageif function, equal averageif. I still need my range, okay? In this case, the sales in column E. I'll highlight that range, comma. And then if it is greater than 100, then do the average for those. Now, let's see what the answer is going to be. I won't tell you what the answer is right away, but I'll show you how I can do it after I get the answer to confirm that it is correct. And it is not having to put the average function in. Okay, so it's going to average this number, this number, this number, this number, and this number, those 5 cells. The answer is 175. Now, how did you know that, Tom? Well, I'm going to highlight those cells that are greater than 100. I'm then going to take my eyeballs and I'm going to look right down here. That number right there says 175 is the average because I highlighted the numbers, as you can see right here. And then therefore, there's the 175 based on the averageif function. Pretty cool. Now, let's now do another averageif function to find out the average sales for Jim. I thought I would trick you. How can we find an average for text? We can't. So the first averageif worked because I was testing numbers in column E, but I can't find an average number of times that Jim has occurred. I can count them, but I don't average anything. Same thing with finding average in state. Now, a different question is, what is my average sales for just Jim's sales? So, the averageif function will not work. However, the averageifs, with an S on the end, will work. So let's see how this works. Equals average ifs, left parenthesis. Now, what is my average range? Well, it's the cells that have the numbers in it. So I will click and drag from E8 down to E19, comma. Now it's asking me what is my criteria range. Well, that's the range that has Jim's name in it. So I click and drag from C8 through C19, comma. Now, what is my test? Equals Jim. So it has to be in double quote marks. Equals character, JIM, close the double quote character, close the parenthesis. The answer is going to be 133.333. There it is. How do I know that? I'm going to click on all the cells that are associated with Jim's sales. I'm going to hold down my control key. These are the 3 right here. And I take my eyeballs right down here, and it's 133.333. There we go. Now, that will be the same aspect for finding the average sales in California. Now, I should probably change this label so it's a little bit more meaningful, but I explained it to you, so hopefully you understand it. It would say average sales by Jim or average sales in California. So here we go. Equal average ifs, IFS, left paren. Now, the average range, again, is the cell range that has the sales numbers in it, separated now by the comma. The criteria range is D8 through D19, not C. Separate that by the comma, and my criteria that I'm checking out, the test that I'm going to insert here, double quote, equals CA for California, close the quote mark, close the parenthesis, and the answer is going to be 2. The average is 137.5. So how do we know that? Well, I click on the sales for California, over here, and I look down here and it's 137.5. I'm a happy camper. Now, moving over to the last section over here, I would like to add up the total sales. So I will use the sumif function right here. Here we go. Equal SUMIF, left parenthesis. Now, the range is, I want to add up all the numbers in column E as long as they're greater than 100. But I have to include the whole range, which is what I just did. Separate by comma, double quote mark, greater than sign, 100, double quote mark, close the parenthesis, and the answer is 875. How do I know that it worked? I highlighted the cells in that range, and I took a look down here, and it says 875. I'm a happy camper. Now, let's do total sales by gym. Remember, I will have to use the sumifs, just like in averageifs. Put an S on the end. Now, the range that I want to add up, it's asking for the sum range, which is this range right here, E8 through E19, comma. The criteria range are the cells that have the people's names in it. And this is C8 through C19, comma, double quote mark, equals character, gym. Close the quote mark, close the parenthesis. The answer is 400. How do I know that worked? Well, I look at the cells that are highlighted for gym sales, and I look right down here. It says sum equals 400. I'm a happy camper. Last but not least, I would like to do similarly to find out what the total sales were for those that took place in the state of California. I will need the sumifs function. SUMIFS, left paren. What's the sum range? Right here. E8 through E19, comma. What is their criteria range? I'm testing the cells with states, which will be D8 through D19, comma. And my last argument will be within the double quote marks, equals CA, close the double quote marks, close the parenthesis, 275. Well, let's find out if that's correct. I highlighted the two cells for California sales. Take my eyeballs down here, 275, 275. So it worked. I hope this video helped you learn about 6 new functions: countif, countifs, averageif, averageifs, sumif, sumifs. Remember, if you've got any further questions about these or any of the other functions that are built into Excel, which there are nearly 500 of them, I can help you. Well, maybe not with all 500, but with a heck of a lot more than probably you're familiar with. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. tomsven@ptd.net. That's how you can reach me. Anytime, any hour. Be more than happy to help. Stay tuned for some more excellent, outstanding Microsoft Office videos. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.